Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for running a bit late, but that happens. So help me in welcoming Axel Avril for hopefully a very interesting presentation. Sound? Should be up.
Can you hear me now? Right. And is it better there?
There you go.
Yeah, fine. Okay. So I'm going to present some work I did, research work I did with a colleague of mine, Karine. She's not here today, so I'll be doing the presentation here. So it's all about Android advertisement kits. So basically, what happens is that you've got three different actors: advertisers, ad providers, and publishers, right? It's very basic, but just that we get the terms right. So advertisers are the brands. They've got some ads that they want to disseminate, and they're going to pay the ad providers to disseminate that ad. And then the ad providers are going to pay publishers so that they display the ad somewhere on the mobile phone. So the publishers can be affiliates, they can be also, I don't know, a developer with his application, and that developer accepts to show the ad in his application, something like that. And of course, in the end, the advertisement gets on the mobile phone of the end user. So that was for the vocabulary part. Now, what are we going to learn? What hopefully we're going to learn in this presentation? Well, first, it's that, well, ad providers have been building a huge metadata database, okay? And that they are able to correlate the data. So maybe that kind of rings a bell towards, I don't know, PRISM or what the NSA has been doing too. The other fact that we're going to learn here is that, well, ad kits obviously want to hide their behavior. They don't want us to know what they are doing. And also that by the way they are implementing their SDKs, well, in several ways they are putting our phones at risk. In two different ways, actually. They're actually exposing some security holes in our mobile phones. That's one part of it. But also from a privacy angle, well, there are several times when we see, obviously, that they are being careless with our data. So this is how we conducted our research. As we're an antivirus company, it's easy. We've got a large database of malware. And so we just took part of that database. It's already 120,000 samples that we started to do our research on. From those, we only took those which were using an ad kit. Then we kind of classified all the ad kits that were being used. And then that's the big part of the research. Well, we reversed each of those ad kits. That's 60 ad kits that we reversed to inspect the code. So in my research here, it's very much about what we found in the code, what we saw they were doing, and not only, I don't know, a permission they are asking, eventually using or not, okay? It's really what we see they are doing in the code. It's quite an important point. So, what are they collecting? Well, I think that the obvious ones you think of is your country, the gender, the age, right? There are also plenty, of course, of sensitive information they're collecting: political views, sexual orientation, marital status, religion. This can be quite sensitive depending on the country. Facebook ID, GPS coordinates, if you've got children or not, your income, search keywords, and you've got still many more. IP address, email addresses, all those. I'm not going to go all through with them. All those, and all those. Okay? So that's in the 60 ad kits that we've reversed, we found over 50 fields that they were collecting. 50. So where are they getting the information from? Well, their first obvious source is the people themselves, of course. So people willingly give information to the ad kits. But what's important to note is that they are giving it in a given context. And usually they're not exactly fully aware that it's going to be reused in another context. Say, for instance, I have a medical app on my Android mobile phone. Well, I'm going to give that application my birth date, I don't know, plenty of medical information, where I live, if I'm smoking, if I'm not smoking, that kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff will be sometime collected by the ad kits. It's all right that we gave it for a medical app, but we won't expect it, I don't know, in another app such as, I don't know, a library application to have that information. And unfortunately, it's not that way that it happens. We see that ad kits are collecting, building a user profile for people. They are correlating data that they get from various applications and combining it to see as much as possible what are our habits, what we like, what we do, what we're going to do, and all that kind of stuff. So we demonstrated that. What we did is that we built two very, very simple applications, foo and bar, very nice names. And we put those on the same mobile phone. Those two applications were using the same AdKit SDK. And foo is sending, I'm age 15. I'm 15, okay? Right. The AdKit gets the information, and the application bar is just sending that I'm located in France. Note that bar, which is on the same mobile phone, is not supposed to know that I'm age 15. But what we see is that the AdKit servers are serving an ad about a French game. Now, let's suppose I say this time I'm 70. Well, what happened is that the AdKit servers provide an ad about a golf resort. So what we see here is that obviously bar, who is not supposed to know my age, well, is getting different ads depending on what age I say I have on another application. So it really proves that the data is being correlated on the AdKit servers. And this is just a screenshot of what we got in one of our applications. So you see it's a French game. Le jeu mobile is a French game in French. So that was the first source of information, people. Now, the second source of information, if people are not willingly giving out some information, well, it's to get the information kind of unwillingly, without some explicit consent. To do that, there's at least two different tricks. One of those is to use explicit permissions on Android. For instance, we've got the read phone state permission on Android, and the documentation for that one says, allows read-only access to phone state. Well, is that really explicit for an end user that it means that we will be able to retrieve your phone number? I don't think it is. Okay. So that's one way to get some information without really saying you're getting that one. The other way is, of course, well, that you can just get a lot of information without having exactly to request for a specific permission. For instance, we noted that mob click was trying to see if it was running on a rooted device or not. There's no Android permission for that. So they just scan on the device. In that particular case, look for the SU executable and see if it's there. And then they guess whether the device is rooted or not. And above all, of course, the information was sent in clear text to the AdKit servers. Wouldn't be fun without that. Some other kind of amusing examples that we saw while reversing the code is the level of details of the fields they are collecting. So in millennial media, for instance, well, they're collecting the marital status. And there's a big, large case where you have, I don't know, if you're single, if you're married, if you're divorced. We kind of expected those for a marital status. But swinger is really more surprising. And of course, it's sent in clear text. In the code of Quattro Wireless, well, we see that they're making a lot of categories for the ages of people. So you've got plenty of different categories for young ones, 12, 17, 18, 24. But then, bad luck, if you're over 55, well, 55 or 80, it's just the same for them. That's an amusing fact. Now this one, I'm pretty sure you were expecting that one. Of course, a lot of AdKits are getting our GPS coordinates. Approximately 50% are getting that. What you perhaps did not expect is that they are still, a lot of them are sending it in clear text. And actually in the 60 AdKits that we reversed, only 1 in 60 had the good idea of using HTTPS to send GPS coordinates, only 1. Google Ad did try to actually encrypt our GPS coordinates, which is a nice attempt. They are using AES to encrypt it. But then when we have a close look in the code, that is, and the lower part of it, well, we see that the key is hard-coded and fixed. So once you have reversed the code once, well, you get the key for to decrypt all the GPS coordinates of everybody who's using that specific Google Ad version. So it's kind of a little bit useless, isn't it? Code obfuscation, I told you, well, they're trying to hide what they're doing. Well, kind of 40% of them are using some form, some level of code obfuscation. It really depends on which AdKits, what exactly, how they're doing it. But we've even seen AirPush, for instance, obfuscating its own name. That's really strange, kind of. So they're not called always com.airpush. Sometimes you see it com.klyv, and it's something like that. Now, of course, using obfuscation is not reprehensible. What is reprehensible, of course, is doing something wrong and hiding it. When we see in another AdKit in the code that they are, for instance, trying to delete the logs, the system logs, that is in mod-click agent, it's kind of a bit too much, I think. Come on, system logs, you're not supposed to be deleting them. Or we see some other AdKits, such as Pontiflex, who is using actively reflection to hide the fact that it's retrieving email addresses. So yeah, Java reflection is kind of a technique. Well, you'll get the class, you'll list all the methods in the class, then you'll invoke a particular method in the class there. So it's kind of an indirect way of calling a given method. So that's the example then. You've got on the upper part exactly what we find in the code of Pontiflex. And on the lower part of the slide, it's the usual direct way people would get your operational email. it's really simple. It would be 2 lines of code, getting the account manager, and then getting the accounts from that. Now it seems that, well, operational emails, of course, are very worthy to the ad kits because it's an email that we'll be reading actively, that they're sure that we'll be seeing, things like that. So they really like to see that probably. And Pontiflex, well, doesn't want us to know it's retrieving our email address and is using the kind of indirect way of getting it through a very lengthy Java reflection to get the same exactly information. We've also noticed a bunch of strange things that we see in the SDK where I'm not exactly sure if it's really malicious or not. It's kind of really borderline, perhaps. For instance, plenty of the SDKs are detecting if they are running on the Android emulator or not. It's pretty easy to do that in the code because you can test, for instance, if, I don't know, the EMEI is to a fixed given value, which is always on the Android emulator, or if it's on a real handset, it will be another value, of course. So that could be used because ad kits I think it's absolutely useless to send an ad to an Android emulator. That's one possible reason. The other way of seeing the thing is that they don't want an antivirus analyst or other analysts to have a look at what's inside the code. And so they are behaving a different way on an Android emulator. The other thing that we saw, which I am not sure of, is, well, why are they detecting if the device is rooted or not? We see that in mob clicks, kind of strange. And then finally, of course, there are few dangerous behaviors that we see occasionally. In app loving, that's one case that we noted. In the code, we see that it is getting a file, then it's calling one of its own classes, which is called SDK classloader. And that one inherits from dex classloader. Now, dex classloader, I guess it's pretty well known from Android developers because that class enables people to load Dalvik executables without actually triggering the normal install. So it means that you'll be loading some external code, you'll be loading it on the mobile phone, installing it, and the end user won't be seeing anything at all. Now, this is really exposing a security hole, because what happens if the AdKit server gets compromised? Does that mean that it could be serving, I don't know, a malware to all the mobile phones? And the mobile phones who have that AdKits are going to install the malware and won't see anything at all. Now, don't get excited. I've got plenty of conclusions, so this is not the last slide. But I noticed that a lot of people just love stats, so I thought I should include a slide about stats. So, 1 malware in 3 contains AdKits. 1 in 2 uses GPS coordinates. 1 in 2 retrieves your Android ID. Less than 20% care to hash or encrypt identifiers. I mean identifiers such as IMEI, IMSI, the UUID, that kind of stuff. And they've been seen to collect over 50 fields, and 40% of them are using obfuscation. Recently, actually, I've been to a conference with Richard Stallman of the Free Software Foundation, and the term of free is really a term the word that they like very much, and they always say, is it free as in beer or free as in speech? So I wondered, what's the case for AdKits? Well, as a matter of fact, it's not free. It's not free in either cases, though. It's not free as in beer, because What happens is that although sometimes the application is free, you still pay for the cost of the data flow. If your subscription does not include that, well, you'll be paying for all the ads that are getting to your mobile phone. Also, you've got all the energy which is consumed for that. Well, there's been a research on that, and actually 65% of the energy which is consumed in gaming apps is for ads, 65%. And then, of course, you've got also, you pay in another way, it's the indirect consumption. If you're seeing all day long an advertisement, buy oranges, you'll end up buying oranges. I've got nothing against oranges, though. And, well, is it free as in speech? Well, no, of course not, because there's a terrible loss of privacy in that case. Now for the dangers. What dangers are we really facing to with mobile ads? Well, when I submitted this paper, actually all the stuff about PRISM and the NSA and X-key score, etc., hadn't been released. So it kind of sheds a new light onto that. But on our mobile phone, of course, we've got plenty of personal data. We've got a camera. We've got a microphone. We've got a GPS, plenty of data. Now, suppose, and I think that happens pretty often, that an ad server is located in the US. Well, could the NSA, with a Patriot Act, request from the ad servers our user profile? So John Doe, age 32, etc. Or what happens also if a cyber criminal gets access to those records and uses it for whatever, some targeted spear phishing, SMSing, whatever, or other case? If the cyber criminal compromises the ad servers and the ad server starts kind of contaminating, infecting all the mobile phones with some malware. Those are pretty possible scenarios. So, are they bad? Are advertisements bad? My opinion is that untargeted advertisements are okay. Right, that is the good part of it. Now, targeted ads are kind of getting really more borderline. There are some targeted ads that we could perhaps accept. For instance, on a TV show, when you're watching, I don't know, a game of soccer, you'll have a lot of ads for men, and when it's a ballet, you'll have a lot of ads for female, okay? So this is some kind of targeted ad. Seems pretty reasonable, though. But with mobile ads, we're really going one step further because they have a lot of our personal data there. And I think this is an issue. So, well, I'm an antivirus analyst, so of course it rings a bell very strongly for me. Where do I set the limit? Where's the limit between something which is entirely clean? Should I detect it as an adware? Should I detect it as a malware? What should I do when I see such samples? And also, for kind of all of us, what can we do about this thing? Because we're in front of something which is kind of dangerous for us, and are there other things that we can do? On the technical point of view, plenty of people have already said that it would be a very good idea to separate the permissions between what the ad kits are requesting and what the application is requested. So that would be a good technical step, of course. There's plenty of broader ways to find solutions. Also, is it possible to move to non-targeted ads? Or could we find a way to promote, adless apps? Because for now, many people, developers in their garage, they build their application, and they just want some revenue when they think, okay, I'm going to put some ad in my app. I'm not sure that is that efficient if they have just a few hundreds of downloads. And the impact is that we get ads everywhere. The last one, auto-destructible data, is just a pure wish, but I don't think that could happen. What I would like, of course, is that We put some data one day, and 3 days later, you can never see it again. It has disappeared. But of course, there's always somebody with a Wayback Machine that can find again the data. So that's perhaps not feasible for now. So, well, anyway, that's plenty of ideas that we've got something to do about it and what we can do. And that pretty much concludes my talk. You've got the way to contact me if you wish. If we've got time for a question, I'm ready to answer, of course.
Right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Any questions from the audience? I think we have time for one at least. Then I can ask some. What can Google do, if anything? Or is Google supposed to do anything about this?
Well, is Google supposed to do anything about it? Well, Google is a very big advertisement company, so I suppose it's not something they would like to do. Perhaps, anyway, something that there are things that can be done. I actually heard, I think Igor Mutik told me about, there's going to be a meeting, I think on the 28th or 29th of October, with plenty of different vendors to come and sit together and see what's possible towards AdKits to find a more reasonable solution. Because for now, we don't know if we should detect it or not. It's really difficult.
Because it's there for a reason. Unless it's malware, it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any questions from the audience? No? Let's thank Axel.